Alrighty, everybody, so we are on part 5 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg, and we're still not even past the first layer. That's actually really interesting. I'm intrigued by that. We're starting off quite strong with the transported soldier of 1593. Let's begin. A folk legend holds that in October 1593, a soldier of the Spanish Empire named Gil Perez, in a 1908 version, was mysteriously transported from Manila in the Philippines to the Plaza Mayor, now the Zocalo. I'm so sorry, my pronunciation is like super bad. In Mexico City. The soldier's claim to have come from the Philippines was disbelieved by the Mexicans until his account of the assassination of Gomez Perez das Marinas was corroborated months later by the passengers of a ship which had crossed the Pacific Ocean with the news. Folklorist Thomas Allibone Janvier, in 1908, let's check him out, described the legend as occurrent among all classes of the population of the city of Mexico. 20th century paranormal investigators giving credence to the story have offered teleportation and alien abduction as explanations. So this is where he appeared. Really pretty, I like that. On October 1593, the soldier was guarding the Palacio del Gobernador. I'm so sorry. Like I said, my pronunciation is like really off. In Manila, in the Capitanecy General of the Philippines. The night before, Governor Gomez Perez das Marinas was assassinated by Chinese pilots, but the guards still guarded the palace and awaited the appointment of a new governor. The soldier began to feel dizzy and exhausted. He leaned against the wall and rested for a moment with his eyes closed. When he opened his eyes a few seconds later, he found himself in Mexico City, in the Viceroyalty of New Spain. See, New Spain? Neat. Thousands of kilometers across the ocean. Some guards found him in the long uniform and began to question who he was. The news of the assassination of the governor of the Philippines was still unknown to the people in Mexico City. The transported soldier was reportedly wearing the palace guard uniform in Manila and knew of his death. In fact, Perez das Marinas was killed at sea some distance from Manila. The authorities placed him in jail for being a deserter with charges of being a servant of the devil. Months later, news of the governor's death came to Mexico on a galleon from the Philippines. One of the passengers recognized the imprisoned soldier and said he had seen him in the Philippines the day after the death of the governor. He was eventually released from jail by the authorities and allowed to go back home. Thomas Allibone Janvier, an American folklorist living in Mexico, reported the legend as the legend of the living spectre in the December 1908 edition of Harper's Magazine, naming the soldier as Gil Perez. The story was one of a series entitled Legends of the City of Mexico, published in a collected volume in 1910. Janvier notes that similar motives are common in folklore. Washington Irving's 1832 book Tales of Alhambra includes the story Governor Manco and the Soldier, which bears similarities to the legend. Janvier's 1908 account was based on a Spanish version by Mexican folklorist Luis González Obregón. Published in his 1900 collection México Viejo, Noticia Histórica, Tradición, Leyendas y Costumbres. Old Mexico, Historical Notes, Folklore, Legends, and Customs, under the title Un Apreciado, an Apparition. Obregón traces the story to a 1698 account by Fray Gaspar de San Agustin of the Spanish conquest of the Philippines, which recounts the story as fact. San Agustin does not name the soldier and ascribes his transportation to witchcraft. Janvier says Obregón asserts that in 1609, Antonio de Morga had written that Perez das Marinas' death was known in Mexico the same day, though de Morga expresses ignorance of how this came to be. José Rizal notes many other miraculous stories from the Spanish Philippines of the time. Louis Weckman makes the same point in relation to Spanish Mexico. A 1936 collection, Historias de Vivos y Muertos, Stories of the Living and the Dead, by Obregón's successor Artemio de Val-Azrip, included a version of the story titled Por el aire vino, por la mar se fu. He came by air, he left by sea. Several writers have offered paranormal explanations for the story. Morris K. Jessup and Brinsley Trench, 8th Earl of Clancarty, suggested alien abduction, while Colin Wilson and Gary Blackwood suggested teleportation. Very interesting. So we got the sources, citations. I think that I want to apologize for my pronunciation. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad at pronouncing a lot of stuff. So I don't mean to disrespect anybody. I'm just really bad at it. But so that is a very interesting story. I'm very intrigued because one, teleportation is quite an interesting phenomenon. And even if it was caused by supernatural forces, it's intriguing to think about how it happened, All right, the frozen cyclist. Interesting. Loading viewer. Spooky cyclist. In 2003, I was visiting my brother in the Scottish Highlands. One night at about 7 p.m., we drove to a friend's house, with Stuart driving and me in the passenger seat. The journey took us along many winding, dark, deserted roads, often flanked by tall trees. As we were making our way along the B9512 near Kingassy, I noticed a tall figure on the left-hand side of the road that seemed to be human, and appeared to be illuminated by a great number of Christmas tree-style lights. My initial feeling was that it was a humorously decorated mannequin advertising a nearby business. I laughed and asked Stuart what it was, but he had no idea, and in fact sounded a little disturbed. As we got closer, I saw that the figure had its back to us, was seated on a bicycle, and was completely still and perfectly balanced despite being mid-cycle. I got quite a shiver as we went by, and the strange sight stuck in my mind throughout our visit to the friend. On the homeward journey, I asked Stuart to slow down as we approached the spot of the earlier sighting so that we could discover what the figure was advertising, or his general purpose. As we approached, my stomach sank as I realized the figure was now on the opposite side of the road. He seemed to be wearing a luminous green workman's tunic, though in truth, I had such shivers I bare to look for too long. I couldn't say why, really, other than the strangeness of the scene, that I couldn't bear to look for too long. My brother was nonplussed, and we were both quite unnerved by the figure. I would be delighted to hear from anyone who knows of any similar sightings in the area, and perhaps their origins. Scott Taylor, Bristol, 2005. Interesting. A frozen cyclist. I don't know. The machine elves. Entities perceived during DMT inebriation have been represented in diverse forms of psychedelic art. The term machine elf was coined by ethnobotanist, I don't know how to pronounce that one, Terence McKenna, for the entities he encountered in DMT hyperspace, also using terms like fractal elves or self-transforming machine elves. McKenna first encountered the machine elves after smoking DMT in Berkeley in 1965. His subsequent speculations regarding the hyperdimensional space in which they were encountered have inspired a great many artists and musicians, and the meaning of DMT entities has been a subject of considerable debate among participants in the network's cultural underground. Enthused by McKenna's effusive account of the DMT hyperspace, Cliff Pickover had also written about the machine elf experience in the book Sex, Drugs, Einstein, and Elves. Strassman noted similarities between self-reports of his DMT study participants' encounters with these entities, and mythological descriptions of figures such as Hayat Hag Kodesh, in Asian religions, including both angels and demons. Strassman also argues for similarity in his study participants' descriptions of mechanized wheels, gears, and machinery in these encounters, and those described in visions of encounters with the living creatures and ophanim of the Hebrew Bible, noting that they may stem from a common neuropsychopharmacological experience. Strassman argues that the more positive of these eternal... Oh my gosh, I'm really caught up in a tizzy right now. Strassman argues that the more positive of the external entities encountered in DMT experiences should be understood as analogous to certain forms of angels. The medieval Jewish philosophers whom I rely upon for the understanding of the Hebrew Bible text and its concept of prophecy portrays angels as God's intermediaries. That is, they perform a certain function for God, Within the context of my DMT research, I believe that the beings that volunteers see could be conceived as angelic, that is, previously invisible, incorporeal spiritual forces that are engarbed or enclothed in a particular form, determined by the psychological and spiritual development of the volunteers, bringing a particular message or experience to that volunteer. Strassman's experimental participants also note that some entities can subjectively resemble creatures more like insects or aliens. As a result, Strassman writes these experiences among his experimental participants also left me feeling confused and concerned about where the spirit molecule was leading us. It was at this point I began to wonder if I was getting in over my head with this research. Hallucinations of strange creatures have been reported by Stephen Sala in a 1958 study in psychotic patients, in which he described how one of his subjects, under the influence of DMT, had experienced strange creatures, dwarves or something, at the beginning of a DMT trip. Other researchers of the entities seemingly encountered by DMT users describe them as entities or beings in humanoid as well as animal form, with descriptions of little people being common, non-human gnomes, elves, imps, etc. Strassman and others have speculated that this form of hallucination may be the cause of alien abduction and extraterrestrial encounter experiences, which may occur through endogenously occurring DMT. Likening them to descriptions of rattling and chattering auditory phenomena described in encounters with the Hayoth in the Book of Ezekiel, Rick Strassman notes that the participants in his studies, when reporting encounters with the alleged entities, have also described loud auditory hallucinations, such as one subject reporting typically the elves laughing or talking at high volume, chattering or twittering. Interesting. Well, the elves, I would have to see them for myself. I'm not going to try DMT, obviously. But, well, the Kin-Cross incident. First Lieutenant Felix Eugene Moncla, Jr., October 21st, 1928, presumed dead November 23rd, 1953, was a United States Air Force pilot who disappeared while performing an air defense intercept over Lake Superior in 1953. His disappearance is sometimes known as the Kinross incident, after Kinross Air Force Base, where Moncla was on temporary assignment at the time he vanished. So that's him. The USAF reported that Moncla had crashed into Lake Superior while tracking a Royal Canadian Air Force C-47 aircraft which was off course. According to the report, the pilot of the Canadian aircraft did not know that he was the subject of an interception. Felix Moncla was born in Mansura, Louisiana on October 21, 1926, to Felix Sr., 1894 to 1957, a high school science teacher, principal, and veteran of World War I, and Yvonne Buridan Moncla, 1900 to 1961, a seamstress. He also had two older sisters, Leonie and Muriel Ann. Not after his father had been hospitalized, Moncla's family moved to Moriarville, Louisiana to live with his uncle and great aunt. Moncla attended high school in Moriarville and upon graduating from high school accepted an athletic scholarship to Southwest Louisiana Institute, where he played football and received his Bachelor of Science degree. After graduation, he enlisted in the United States Army and served during World War II as part of the occupation force of Japan. After his service, Moncla attended the University of New Orleans, but re-enlisted in the military at the start of the Korean War in 1950, this time joining the United States Air Force as an officer pilot trainee. After spending a few months at a desk job in Dallas, Texas, Moncla was sent to Connally Air Force Base in Waco, for basic pilot training, where he met and married Bobby Jean Coleman. He took his advanced pilot training at Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock and further training on the F-89 Scorpion at the Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida. In Panama City, Bobby Jean gave birth to their first son. In July 1952, Moncla and his family moved to Madison, Wisconsin, and had a daughter born 5 months before Moncla's disappearance. On the evening of November 3, 1953, Air Defense Command Group ground intercept radar operators at Sault Ste. Marie. I've been there, but I forget how to pronounce that one. Michigan. Well, I've been up the Sault Ste. Marie on the Canadian side. Identified an unusual target over Lake Superior near the Sioux Locks. An F-89C Scorpion jet from Kinross Air Force Base was scrambled to investigate the radar return. The Scorpion was piloted by First Lieutenant Moncla, with Second Lieutenant lieutenant. I'm from Canada, so I say it as lieutenant, but I think it's lieutenant in this case. Robert L. Wilson acting as the Scorpion's radar operator. Wilson had a difficult time tracking the object on the Scorpion's radar, so ground radar operators gave Moncla directions towards the object as he flew. Moncla eventually closed in on the object at around 8,000 feet in altitude. Ground control tracked the Scorpion and the unidentified object as two blips on the radar screen. The two blips on the radar screen grew closer and closer until they seemed to merge. Assuming that Moncla had flown either under or over the target, ground control anticipated that moments later the Scorpion and the object would appear again as two separate blips. There was a fear that the two objects had struck one another, but the single blip continued on its previous course. Attempts were made to contact Moncla via radio, but without success. A search and rescue operation by both the USAF and the Royal Canadian Air Force was quickly mounted, but failed to find any trace of the plane or its pilots. Weather conditions were a factor in hampering the search. The official USAF Accident Investigation Report states that the F-89 was sent to investigate an RCAF C-47 Skytrain, which was traveling off course. The F-89 was flying at an elevation of 8,000 feet when it merged with the other aircraft, as was expected in an interception. Its IFF signal also disappeared after the two returns merged on the radar slope. Although efforts to contact the crew on the radio were unsuccessful, the pilot of another F-89 sent on the search stated in testimony to the accident board that he believed that he had a brief radio transmission from the pilot about 40 minutes after the plane disappeared. USAF investigators reported that Moncla may have experienced vertigo and crashed into Lake Superior. The USAF said that Moncla had been known to experience vertigo from time to time. Additional leads uncovered that during this later course of the investigation indicated that there might be a possibility that Lieutenant Moncla was subject to attacks of vertigo a little more than the normal degree. Upon pursuing these leads, it was discovered that statements had been made by former members of Lieutenant Moncla's organization, but were not first-hand evidence and were regarded as hearsay. Pilot vertigo is not listed as a cause or possible cause in any USAF Accident Investigation Board's findings and conclusions. The official accident report states that when the unknown return was first picked up on the radar, it was believed to be RCAF aircraft VC-912, but was classified as unknown because it was off its flight path course by about 30 miles. This assertion was emphatically denied by the pilot of this RCAF flight, Gerald Fosberg, when he was interviewed for the David Cherniak documentary The Moncla Memories, produced for Vision TV's Enigma series. According to a UFO writer Donald Kehoe, in his 1955 book The Flying Saucer Conspiracy, he received a telephone call telling him of a rumor out at Selfridge Field that an F-89 from Kinross, SIC, was hit by a flying saucer. But a follow-up call to public information, Officer Lieutenant Robert C. White revealed that the unknown in that case was a Canadian DC-30. It was over the locks by mistake. The locks referred to the restricted airspace over the Sioux Locks and Sault Ste. Marie, on the U.S.-Canada border at the southeast end of Lake Superior. It is possible that aircraft parts found near the eastern shore of Lake Superior in late October 1968 were from the missing F-89. A USAF officer confirmed that the parts were from a military jet aircraft, and news reports speculated that these might be from Moncla's F-89. The identity of the parts was never published, and the Canadian government states that they have no record of the find. So this is his memorial. According to a story circulated among UFO buffs on the internet in 2006, a group of Michigan divers called themselves... Oh my gosh, I need to reread that. According to this... Oh my goodness, I just woke up. According to a story circulated among UFO buffs on the internet in 2006, a group of Michigan divers calling themselves the Great Lakes Dive Company discovered Moncla's F-89 at the bottom of Lake Superior and the approximate location where the jet had disappeared from the radar. That's interesting. Well, we're not sure where he went, but still, I hope that Mr. Moncla is resting in peace. The last one for today is the Fleshgaits. I think I know what this is referring to. Oh, that's actually really scary. I don't like that. Is that the lake? Well, anyways, a Fleshgait is a cryptid shapeshifter said to be able to perfectly mimic the voice and appearance of animals and humans. even copy their behavior after a period of time. It's believed that they can do this by occupying the victim's body or skin. It is unknown just how exactly a fleshgate acquires a body, but the most popular theories state that they either eat the innards and wear the skin, or simply skin the victim and discard the internal organs. It's difficult to determine what method is used due to the fact that little or to no physical evidence is found after a fleshgate's attack. These creatures were originally called, I'm not going to say that word because I'm scared, but to avoid confusion with a Navajo witch with the ability to turn into animals, a separate denomination was created. The short-term motivations of the Fleshgate are clear: steal a human identity, adapt to survive amongst humans, and find more humans to kill and steal their identity. Their long-term goals are unknown, if any. A Fleshgate will wait for a small group of humans to enter their territory, wait for one of them to become separated from the group or listen for mimicable phrases, and then lure or trick someone to be killed, before an actual attack. The presence of a Fleshgate is indicated by unexplained noises and or objects being moved while nobody's looking. The attack itself is shrouded in mystery, simply because their goal is for the victim to be alone. Once an attack has occurred, the victim will no longer act like himself. The most telling sign that an attack has occurred is a complete lack of personality, even if the victim wasn't very expressive beforehand. Often, the victim will simply stare off into space, examine objects quizzically, or pay extra attention to any conversation going on around them, all these in an effort to mimic humans. These signs may fade after a period of time once the Fleshgate learns more about human behavior and what its victim used to be like, but they will never completely disappear. Once a human body has been secured, the Fleshgate will likely try to lure others to the woods to claim other victims. It will try to make excuses to return with someone, such as the need to go to the restroom, a fear of being alone, or requiring assistance with a chore such as gathering food or firewood. Fleshgates have been reported to appear in a variety of environments ranging from woods to tundra, and according to some reports, even in human society after a successful consumption of a victim. Although not exclusive to these areas, they are often encountered in off-limits locations such as illegal camping sites or military training grounds, as well as hard-to-reach locations such as cliff faces. It's heavily advised to avoid such locations if going in a woods recreationally. However, a Fleshgate can also be encountered uncomfortably near human society, including well-known campsites or on forests across the street from a suburb. A Fleshgate that has recently acquired a body will be jumpy and be extremely wary of being attacked or identified by other humans. A good way to determine if someone you know has been fleshed is to ask it personal questions that have not been discussed in the camping trip. The victim will definitely know, such as, what is your dog's name? Regardless of whether the answer is right or wrong, pretend they got it right, but if it's wrong, be on high alert. The voice mimicry of a Fleshgate is perfect, but its phrases are severely limited and repetitive. Examples include help, hey, name, or something that it heard while eavesdropping. The pitch and intonation of these phrases will sound identical every time, almost like it is playing them as a recording, instead of actually uttering them. One encounter seems to indicate that Fleshgates are weak against drugs. A person who was fleshed was given a large dose of heroin, and subsequently expelled the creature from the body. However, judging by the scene the following morning, this only angered the Fleshgate. Oh. That's interesting. Well, okay, I suppose we're going to continue. Russian Elite's eyes glow in the dark. What does the paranormal board of 4chan think about the glowing eyes of Russia's politics and most wealthy party? Lights went out unexpectedly as the building lost power. Many of the rich and famous of Russia attending this party had glowing eyes. Not all in attendance had glowing eyes. Famous Russian band hired to play at the gala left immediately due to fear. Theater does a better job explaining it than I do. English is not my first language. Interesting. But, wearing contacts. Terry told us about those that glow. Pretty sure one of the witnesses said they told her it was stem cells. It's absurd to imagine grown adults and the elderly, let alone powerful businessmen and politicians, all being in the same Facebook group/email list coordinating wacky fashion accessories for a formal gala. Also, glowing contacts would fully blind you in the dark. I see by and taking light, but if you put a light source physically on your eye, they're just reflective contacts. Example is how they did practical effects in the Riddick movies. That was very creepy. Contacts could be an explanation, but the whole band freaked out and left, which seemed like a natural thing to do if you see something irrational. The band leader looked like a standard Russian. Russians see enough shit in their life to not be afraid of rational horror, like a brawl or something along those lines. Plus, they play in a band, so they see enough freaks on a daily basis to be hardened. In a cosplay manner, if their instincts kicked in as a whole group, it's worthy enough to be looked into. Could be worshippers of some kind of occult materialistic demon. A mark of sort to identify each other. You keep saying it's contacts, but do you have any basis for that at all? Interesting. Well, is it contacts or is it not? I suppose we'll never know. So, well, I am going to stop there. But, I hope you enjoyed. I, once again, apologize for, my pronunciation. And I will see you when I see you. Bye-bye!